You've just accessed Hardware is Forever, your source for the expert insights, ideas, and innovations you need to do more in the electronics manufacturing industry. From optimization to operations, join us as we put the pieces together for a better approach to manufacturing. Let's go.
Welcome back to Hardware is Forever. I'm Chris Bentliff, and Jay Patel is with us, as always, the CEO at Amtech, and we're continuing our conversation around the 14 points of management, Deming's 14 points of management. And today is an interesting one. We're talking about Principle 7, which is institute leadership. The aim of supervision should be to help people and machines and gadgets to do a better job. Supervision of management is in need of overhaul, as well as supervision of production workers. This is, we were just saying before we started, this is a big one. For me, it's a big one because leaders can sometimes have a complacency about their own need for scrutiny or overhaul. And it's easy to point the finger down instead of at myself. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts on this are. When you think about this idea of instituting leadership and supervision of leadership is in need of an overhaul, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I think, trends change, things happen, new fads come. And I think, when Deming was really talking about this, I think he was a visionary ahead of his times. He was ridiculed until he was popularized. And but I think, what he's talking about here is what we call servant leadership nowadays, which is the new thing that all leaders are learning, and the new lingo and the new fashion or the new trend for all leaders is that it is our responsibility to set everybody else up for success. We are not there to pressure them. We are not there to make them afraid of losing their job. So they do what we expect the result should be. And I think it's a phenomenal change that has been instituted in a different way now, which we call servant leadership. I'm not expert at servant leadership, but it just sounds, from what I've understood, there's another way of saying servant leadership.
Which is such a juxtaposition from the old school sort of command and control vibe of, and it's been a minute since, we've really been in the throes of I'm the boss, so therefore you do as I say.
Yeah.
The workforce has replied, no, we won't work there then. But there's still every one of us has some story of some manager that was awful because they brought their own weird insecurities into work with them every day. And so it didn't matter what we were trying to do culturally at the organization, this particular person, which then begs the question, how'd they become a manager? Well, they were here long enough. There get to be these complex sort of issues around leadership that have nothing to do with what kind of building are you trying to be in, or what kind of operation or what kind of culture you're trying to build, but who are the human beings in there. And I think that's really interesting. Do you find that is, you have to attract a certain sort of human being rather than a certain sort of skill set? Or where does that bridge disconnect, and where does it stay intact?
Yeah, it initially starts with the founder of the organization and how well versed they are and how open they are to change and implementing these things. Now, some people have significant weaknesses, and if the leader knows that, okay, for the team to work, they need to step back and bring somebody else who has these qualities, I think that's a strength in the founders. If not, then the founders, and I've done it and my brother's done it, is we've had to learn how to implement these things because we just didn't have any other resources to be able to do it. And really, until you implement these, I don't think there's any way to gain any traction personally. So, the founders either have to change themselves and work on themselves to be able to embody these type of principles, or they have to bring and put a team together and kind of stay out of their way to be able to implement these principles.
You mentioned your brother. Yours is a family business and it's generational. Your dad started the business. Has there been? What's that been like? So have you had to unlearn management styles or leadership styles, or help your organization unlearn, or have you had to learn new? You're naturally a really curious, inquisitive, sort of introspective person. How does that mesh with, as a leader, mesh with the overall culture of of Amtech? How has that been to navigate
So
these waters?
it's been a journey. Sometimes it's been a kicking and screaming one. Sometimes it's been a welcome change. But like I said, founders really need to imbibe this. And if we can find somebody else who can implement it and implement these things, we can. Otherwise, we have to change. And it has been, initially we were like, okay, we don't want to micromanage. We don't want to put the fear into people of doing it. So, okay, we don't want to do that. But then, and we know that because that doesn't make us feel good. Now, nobody likes to get upset. Nobody likes any of that kind of stuff. But then the alternative is, actually, what is the alternative then? How do you make an effective organization without doing that? I think, creating pressure is very, very, the humans are wired that way, fight or flight type of reaction. Whenever you see any type of conflict, or anything that's wrong, or anything that makes you scared, it's fight or flight right away. So to understand, like, it is understandable why previously management was like this, leadership was like this, because that's how we've been just innately developed as human beings, and that's how we've evolved. But also on top of that, we have this other thing that we can talk about, which is our critical analysis, our ability to look long term, forecast, plan, create, implement ideas, obtain feedback, work with other people at a different level than just this type of fear thing and reactionary thing. And I think that's where it really says, okay, how do you transition from where we were at to where we need to be? And that is a big journey. And, and this is a very personal one for me, instituting leadership, as a founder, as the owner of the organization, it starts with me. And, every success that I have, I know it's not because of me, it's because of a team effort, but every failure, 100%, is on my shoulders. Like, I have to be better to be able to set everybody up for success. And I have failed a lot in that.
And that humility, by the way, is part of your leadership skill set, which for me brings me to a question around what is the difference between a leader and a manager?
I think, again, Deming, I was this many years old, this many days old when I found out. So managers control, leaders support, and coach.
So leaders inspire, managers direct.
I guess they tighten and tighten the guardrails to a point where there's only one way to do it. But leaders, I guess, they don't tighten the guardrails, but teach everybody why, and show everybody why, and coach everybody why it needs to be done in a particular manner.
How do you, as a leader, we use that word a lot, and we can be confused between a job title that means you're a leader and an actual skill set. People follow me because I'm a good leader. But how do you, because there's a time and a place running any organization, running any team, where you have to look, everybody, we've got this issue we need to deal with, or look, person, we really need to work on this thing together because this is not okay. Like there's real world issues of like performance or discipline or practice that need to be addressed, and sometimes with a level of scrutiny. I don't want to say control, but sometimes with a level of scrutiny, versus we can have, I think, kind of this soft view of, leadership is just making people feel inspired. Well, there's got to be more than inspiration for us to make a paycheck. So how do you balance that?
So, there's two things and everything, like we can be policed into compliance, or we can say, hey, we need this level of compliance so then we can live life in a joyful manner and we can reach our potential. So I think that's the number one thing that leaders need to share. Number two is, in life or at work, there are certain objectives that we know we feel good, and we know that what winning the game of business or life looks like. So if we are able to communicate, this is winning for us. This is what winning looks like for us. And we lead with those objectives. Like, we have our core values, we have our why at Amtech. And as long as we lead by those core values, then, of course, we're in the game of business, so we can't be losing money. We have to be making money. So as long as we communicate those things with everybody and understand that that, okay, these are the games of life. We want to accomplish this, and this in the time that we have, and we want to do it this way. I think it creates rather than like, okay, I need to really focus on this, or I can't do anything else. I got to do this because we need to succeed. It opens up as like, I have all the ideas and all the options and all the abilities in the world to be able to accomplish this goal. What if we do this, and this to be able to accomplish it? And I think that way we get more and more feedback. The company comes to life. There's an energy that's there in the organization that allows us to grow then.
Do you find it difficult to cultivate your own leadership team? We've had conversations before where we're talking about, well, who are we hiring? So you try to start from the right point, from the right place, just at the beginning, and not make it harder for yourself. But is it challenging? Is it dynamic? What is it like to sort of, I don't know, work with your own skill sets of your own team to sort of understand the difference between leadership and management, when to put your foot on this throttle versus that, kind of, I guess, how to balance that?
So I think, from what I've talked to everybody, the hardest thing for any type of leadership team to do, or people who are in management, is hire the right people. That is the most difficult thing out there. And when an organization is growing, you need people, otherwise you can't grow. So we get to a point where we may compromise our core values and our capabilities, our standards, but that doesn't work, and it always bites you in the in the end. So I think really always looking for that and always nurturing that. And like with the way that we do it is we look at our core values. If we look at culture fit first before talent fit. Hit our core values, we bring them in, and then the talent and the technical things can be taught. And what are we looking for? I think Deming says it perfectly, is that old school managers solve conflict through pressure or compromise where there is a win-lose outcome. And most likely it is the managers and management's win and the team members lose. The new leadership makes it a win-win type of situation. And that's where the big difference is like, can we get people who are okay with conflict? Can we bring that conflict out into the open? Can we have a conversation about that? And can we create a win-win situation? Now, it may be like win, but we're going to have to lose a little bit now to win in a long-term type of situation. But in the sense that something can't be fixed overnight. And then if we can't get the team to buy into that conflict solving process, then we may have not hired the right leaders in the organization.
And so now we're back to a conversation around what? Training, culture, the CEO's view of leadership. Like, how do we avoid making those mistakes as much as we can? We can't, but how do we avoid as much as we can?
I don't think, again, learning from others, what we're doing is learning from best practices and lessons learned of others. Surrounding yourself with great people and great leadership team with really good experience that can guide us. And number two, know that we are going to make mistakes. I guess don't get down on ourselves for the mistakes. Expect them, almost celebrate them, and then go back to the Deming cycle and implement the changes and continuously improve. Because at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. Like nothing is perfect at all. And if we are to wait for perfection to be able to launch anything or do anything, we would never do anything. So I think it's just having the right mindset, setting yourselves up and how to do things. Really, again, Deming is huge, especially in manufacturing or anything else. For us, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. And just having faith in yourself on that we can continuously improve and learn. Now, if you don't want to learn, if you don't want to continue to improve, and if you just want to be right all the time, then you can try, but life is going to teach you in a very painful way that you are not going to win, or your quality of life is going to be not very good.
And too often the people that are suffering or experiencing that seem to be unable to recognize that about themselves. The same weird issues that they're bringing to work are also at their home, are also at their Thanksgiving table. the stuff that makes them hard to be around doesn't turn off when they leave work. And I don't know, that's interesting. You bring up some really good points around. We've talked about this before too. There's ways to looking at Deming's points as like, this is kind of a recipe for living, not just working, you know?
Yeah. And really it's just a little bit more common sense than anything else. But again, common sense is not common. So we need people like Deming to be able to do that. And really, when Deming came up with this stuff, again, he was ridiculed. He was not accepted. Nobody wanted to implement his things. He had to leave the country and find people. To find people to implement it, he had to leave the country. He had to go to a different country and do it. And that's part of leadership. Knowing that, okay, this is not going to work here, but I know this is good and this is what I want to do. Can we do it somewhere else? And he did it.
Jay Patel, as always, fascinating conversations. I learn a lot from you, and I'm grateful for the generosity of your thoughts and ideas about this stuff. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers and followers. Consider becoming one today wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Hardware is Forever is designed, tested, engineered, and built by the manufacturing experts at Amtech. Learn more and let us help you envision your next project with a free Design for Manufacturing assessment at buildamtech.com/DFM.